Hello and welcome to another video essay where today we're going to be discussing one of the most anticipated dramas of this year, Boyfriend on Demand, which possibly has one of the most star-studded casts ever. I mean, just see for yourself. I'll be honest, I went into this drama with a very different idea of what it would actually be about, but I wasn't unhappy with what I did watch, and I've actually come away with it with a lot of thoughts, both good and possibly critical. But enough vagueness, let's get into it. Disclaimer, as per usual, there will be spoilers, so click off now if you haven't watched it yet or just don't want the spoilers. These are all my subjective opinions, and I'd love to hear yours too. Healthy debate and discussion is encouraged, and make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Boyfriend on Demand follows our main lead, Seo, a webtoon producer for one of the top webtoons in the show. She's pictured to be extremely type A, very organised, very busy, and extremely structured, leaving her very little room for her social life, or, as you may have guessed or may already know, a boyfriend. The story follows her as she's introduced to a virtual dating experience called Boyfriend on Demand, something that was pitched to her to try out and review, not as a long-term thing, keep in mind. She uses it frequently, finding escape from her regular life in this virtual world, in which she can pick a romantic story in any genre of her choosing, initially becoming addicted to a MWAH story. However, she very slowly becomes addicted, spending hundreds of thousands of won per month on these subscriptions in order to stay in this world and meet more men. One of them being a college story where she meets, seemingly, the man of her dreams, before realizing that over 10,000 other people are dating him too with the exact same storyline. It all gets very complex, and the lines between reality and fiction slowly blur, for the characters and for the audience, especially when her annoying co-worker and rival webtoon producer Park Kyung-nam appears as her ideal type in the virtual world under a different name. The story may seem silly and lighthearted on the surface, and it is definitely a comfort watch, but there are definitely deeper themes to this drama that are impossible to ignore. But before we get too much into that, let's first dissect the main leads and their roles in this drama. Surprisingly, this was my first introduction to Jisoo's acting, and as a K-pop fan, I'm often skeptical when I hear of idols branching into acting, but I have to say, I was very pleasantly surprised by her performance, and I thought she brought so much to the role. Mireille is such a fun character and is so expressive in everything she does. I love expressive characters. She's the sunshine to the male lead's grumpy. Mireille as a character is very typical for a female lead. She's outgoing and funny and a little chaotic, someone we want to root for as a character, and also someone who we can relate to. She's in a regular job but in a high position that she's had to work for, along with the male lead. And to be honest, I think it's very realistic as a storyline. Even the bits in the virtual world, because it really isn't that far-fetched to think that VR could become this advanced in the very near future. I also think she's such a great character to have representing a much larger group of people, and it's executed very well. Her slow addiction to and obsession with Boyfriend on Demand and living in an ideal world speaks a lot on the state of society at the moment and the idea of escapism in young people especially. And young women too, who, like myself, haven't always had the best experiences with men in the real world. I think her character is presented as quite obsessive in general, as we see her dedication to her work, whether forced or by choice, as something that completely takes over her life, to the point where her boyfriend breaks up with her over it. This workaholic female lead is a character we're seeing a lot more now, but interestingly, even though Mireille is shamed for it by her previous boyfriend, she finds one that is pretty much her exact mirror image, just the less bubbly version. This contrast highlights the importance of compromise on both ends for a relationship to work when both partners are also committed to their careers and jobs. Even though I was pleasantly surprised by her character though, I was slightly disappointed with how she's presented to us in certain aspects. I think there's a common trend in dramas by which the female lead needs a man, and I know that we literally wouldn't have a storyline if she was happily single, but it heavily gives the impression, through the introduction of Boyfriend on Demand, that a woman can't be happily single. This is possibly problematic for an audience, and it can give the impression that a woman should do anything possible in order to be in a relationship. And from what we can see, Mireille is in a career that she really enjoys, even if it is stressful sometimes, and in a position that she's worked really hard to get. I often naturally approach media by looking at it through a feminist lens, and while feminism doesn't mean that you can't want romance or love by any means, it does mean that you shouldn't have any expectations realistically to not focus on the things that you love and are passionate about, putting yourself first. So in this case, I see Mireille as an extremely successful woman who is dealing with a painful breakup with her most recent boyfriend, but seemingly needs this new experiment because how dare she not be in a relationship? Just the idea of boyfriend on demand being catered towards women who have no time for a boyfriend speaks volumes, as it pokes on this idea that no matter how successful she is, a woman should be in a relationship. This is possibly a comment on South Korean society as a whole, in the sense that there is a high expectation to marry and have kids, and whilst this mindset has calmed in the West, I'd say it's still a heavily adopted mindset in many cultures, including Western countries. So whilst Mireille was a fun character to follow and her dates with these virtual men were entertaining and her back and forth with Kyungnam is amusing, we're only really introduced to her character through her relationships. Whether it's seeing her in flashbacks with her ex or how she acts around the incredibly attractive men she dates in the virtual world, there's not really many instances where we get to see her in the real world just by herself. There are a few, such as when she's with her best friend, and there's a really cute episode where they're on a work retreat, but even then, the action is very much centered between her and Kyungnam, and they're not even dating yet at this point. However, as much as I do see through this lens, I also can't say that I didn't enjoy the banter between her and Kyungnam, or that I wasn't giggling and kicking my feet when she was virtually dating Eunho, because I very much was. I only wish that we could get more female leads that aren't seeking relationships like it's their only purpose in life. Thank you. At first, he seems like the grumpy to Mireille's sunshine, but in reality, Kyungnam is even more of a softie than Mireille is, and is so damn bad for her. It's one of those romances where you think it's enemies to lovers until you hear from the other lead's perspective and realise they've been in love with the other lead the whole time. I found his character really interesting and a beautiful polar opposite to Mireille. They're definitely the golden retriever black cat duo, and once we get to know more about him as a character, I think he becomes really lovable. He was to me anyway. His confession to Mireille comes as quite a surprise, but also kind of doesn't. It's inferred that he feels something towards her even in the earliest episodes, and that it's only one-sided hate from Mireille, but it's not really explicitly stated until his voiceover where we see things from his perspective and his confession to her. His character becomes a lot more fleshed out from this point onwards, as we don't see him as a rival, but we feel sorry for him, and not just because Mireille doesn't accept at first, but because he's basically, unbeknownst to him, up against these AI boyfriends who, idealistically, are better than him, because they've been curated to be the perfect boyfriends. While we're on his character, I think it's important to also dip into the role of Young-il, the name of the personalised boyfriend on Demand, who, for Mireille, looks exactly like Kyungnam, but with a very different personality. I really enjoy dramas that allow a character to multi-role because I think it really helps demonstrate their range, and Seo In-guk definitely showed his range. Despite having the same face, it really does feel like they're two completely different people. Which they are, of course, and this distinction is important as it's what makes Mireille realise that the only one she really loves is Kyungnam. If we skip forward a little bit in time when Mireille and Kyungnam have started dating, Mireille is still seeing Young-il, to which Kyungnam finds out by going into the virtual world as Mireille. This is also a good point to mention Jisoo's acting too, because she acts very well as Kyungnam as if he was in her body. It all sounds very complicated, but played out on screen, I'd say it's extremely successful. His meeting with Young-il is expectedly extremely shocking, as he begins to put two and two together and is unsure whether Mireille actually loves him or just this apparent version of him. This really broke my heart for him, and I was honestly pleasantly surprised when he heard her out and they talked it out. It shows a maturity that isn't often seen in dramas, and it obviously highlights how much he loves her, because I don't know about you, but I don't know if I could come back from that. The boyfriends, which is what I'm going to call them, are all extremely significant to the story in different ways. And I know what you're thinking, these aren't real relationships, how can they be significant? Well, it's funny you ask. Each prominent boyfriend, which in the case of this review is going to be Siwoo, Eunho, Young-il, and of course, the definitely real boyfriend Kyungnam, seem to represent a stage of her life and show her gradual progression towards complete healing from her past relationship. Let's start with Seo, her first boyfriend, the one that she doesn't expect to like but ends up becoming completely obsessed with before she realizes she kind of has to explore other storylines and romantic interests. He is, coincidentally enough, the man she sees every day, in the form of cardboard, as he's the main man in the webtoon that she helps produce and is the catalyst to this whole story. She's extremely skeptical at first but becomes so obsessed with their story and so invested that she runs out of her free hours before she gets to the good bit of their romance. This is what makes him the catalyst, as it's from this point that she begins to pay, and I mean pay, for the subscription, which is, brace yourself, 500,000 won, which is about $350 or thereabouts per month. Per month, not even annually. This is how she meets the internet's favorite virtual boyfriend, the college sweetheart plus rekindled love later in life. When watching their relationship play out, it's really, really difficult to distinguish between what's real and fiction, because not only do they have incredible chemistry, but they're also the main focus for almost whole episodes at a time, until we get those interjected breaks back to reality. This relationship is particularly significant as it mirrors her relationship with her ex quite accurately, causing her to reflect on that relationship, something she hadn't had the time to do beforehand due to her busyness. This also helps the audience to see where the problems were in her previous relationship, but also how special it was to her, as he was her first love. Therefore, Eun-ho is actually a lot more than just the objectively perfect boyfriend, because he, unknowingly at first, helps Mire to process her breakup. Her relationship with Young-il is where it starts to get messy, and also where it all starts to come together. As mentioned earlier, Young-il is the name of the personalized boyfriend that you can get on Boyfriend on Demand, and it's just for you, unlike the other boyfriends who were, as it said in the show, the boyfriends of 10,000 plus other people. He ends up having the face of Kyungnam, but a completely different personality, ending up being a personalized therapist for Mire rather than a boyfriend. However, he helps her realize her very real feelings for Kyungnam, someone she had feared dating previously because of how her previous relationship had ended. This is a moment of growth for Mire, as she finally opens herself up and her heart to the idea of dating properly again. I think showing this progression on screen is a really beautiful way to do it, as we're brought along Mire's journey and we feel what she feels, her confusion, her hurt, and her eventual happiness. My only wish is that we'd had more of the main couple actually being together after the Young-il incident, as considering this is a story where they end up together, we don't get that much of them as a couple like we did with Eun-ho. Overall, this was such a fun drama with a really interesting premise, and I did enjoy it. Whilst I was unsure of the chemistry between the two leads at first, I do think they were a good fit when they began to date. I just couldn't see the vision at first. The drama really explores themes of obsession and how escapism is such a prevalent concept in our lives right now, with people wanting to break free from their realities, which, looking at the state of the world, aren't easy realities to live in right now. And I did appreciate that the drama ended with Mire abandoning Boyfriend on Demand and pursuing an imperfect but extremely loving relationship instead of a perfect but insincere one. This, however, can't be said for the other characters in the show who pursue relationships with the virtual boyfriends, implying that where one person is able to overcome the problem of obsession, another can't, or maybe even doesn't want to. It's such an interesting premise, and I really hope we get more dramas with creative concepts like this that don't stray very far away from reality. Because whilst I love a supernatural or extremely unrealistic storyline, I do like realistic stories too. So let me know your thoughts on this drama. I'd love to know what you thought if you've watched it, and head over to Substack where you'll find the essay of this in its original written form, plus more content from me per week. The link is in the description. Tune in on Friday for Flashback Fridays, where we'll be discussing an older drama, and next Tuesday for another newly released drama. Until next time, my drama princes and princesses, stay dramatic. Mwah.